Did Mingyu just draw a line for all idols? The Jungkook phone number incident that turned a casual live into K-pop's most uncomfortable wake-up call. What really happened in that split second? And why did one strange comment about Jungkook's phone number suddenly feel like it exposed everything wrong with modern fandom? The live streaming session was supposed to be ordinary, almost forgettable. A relaxed moment, a familiar face, a few jokes, and the comforting illusion of closeness that fans have grown used to in the age of real-time interaction. Mingyu of 17 was sitting in his car, talking casually to viewers, scrolling through comments the way idols do thousands of times a year. Nothing about that moment suggested controversy. Nothing hinted that within seconds, a single line of text would flip the mood, ignite outrage across social media, and reopen one of the most sensitive wounds in K-pop, the boundary between admiration and entitlement. Then it happened. A comment appeared in the chat, blunt and unapologetic, asking for Jungkook's phone number. Not joking, not subtle, not even trying to hide behind humor. And instead of ignoring it, instead of letting it pass like countless inappropriate comments before it, Mingyu stopped, read it, reacted, and told the account to leave. Why did that reaction feel so different? Why did fans from two of the biggest fandoms in the world suddenly stop arguing with each other and start asking the same uncomfortable question? Have we finally gone too far? From the moment the clip began circulating on X, formerly Twitter, the tone of the conversation shifted. This wasn't just another viral idol moment. This wasn't playful chaos or harmless fan behavior being blown out of proportion. There was something raw in Mingyu's expression, something unfiltered in his voice. When he called the comment weird and told the user to get out of the live, it didn't sound rehearsed. It didn't sound like company training. It sounded like a human being, reacting instinctively when a line is crossed. And that, more than anything else, is what made people uncomfortable. Because for years, fans have been conditioned to believe that idols must always smile, always deflect, always absorb. That ignoring invasive behavior is part of the job. That silence is professionalism. That politeness is protection. But in that moment, Mingyu chose neither silence nor politeness. He chose confrontation, brief and sharp, and then moved on. Was it just a reflex, or was it something more? The timing made it impossible to dismiss. Jungkook, one of the most globally recognized artists on the planet, has already dealt with severe privacy violations in the past. His personal phone number has reportedly been leaked before, leading to unwanted calls and constant disturbances. For fans who remember that period, the request felt especially disturbing. Asking for someone's private contact information in a public live stream, especially when that person isn't even present, didn't feel like ignorance. It felt like disregard. And the fact that the request was made during the live stream of Jungkook's close friend made it even worse. Mingyu and Jungkook are part of the famous 97 line, a group of idols born in 1997 whose friendships have often been celebrated as symbols of healthy camaraderie across rival groups. Fans love those friendships. They romanticize them, clip them, analyze every interaction. But in that same breath, some fans forget that friendship does not mean access, and closeness does not mean consent. So when someone typed that comment, it didn't just target Jungkook. It placed Mingyu in an impossible position. Ignore it and risk appearing complicit. Laugh it off and normalize the behavior. Or address it and risk backlash. Mingyu chose to address it, and the internet exploded. Within hours, fan accounts began reposting the clip, freezing frames of Mingyu's expression, replaying his tone, dissecting every syllable. One of the earliest viral posts came from a Jungkook-focused fan account that openly criticized the behavior, calling it proof that some fans had lost their minds and questioning where basic respect had gone. The post spread rapidly, pulling ARMY and Carrot into the same conversation, not as rivals, but as witnesses to something deeply unsettling. Other accounts followed, echoing the same sentiment in different words. Some called the request absurd, some called it invasive, some called it dangerous. A few went further, framing it as an example of sasang mentality creeping into spaces that were once considered safe. But not everyone agreed. As the discussion grew louder, a familiar counterargument emerged. Some netizens insisted that Mingyu should have ignored the comment. That responding only amplified the issue. That idols are trained to filter comments mentally, not emotionally. That a single fan's bad behavior didn't deserve attention. And that's where the conversation turned from reaction to reckoning. Is ignoring invasive behavior actually neutral, or does it quietly encourage it? For years, silence has been the industry's default response. Agencies release statements, idols stay quiet, fans fight among themselves. But nothing fundamentally changes. The same lines keep getting crossed, just in different ways, on different platforms, with different victims. Mingyu's reaction, brief as it was, disrupted that pattern. He didn't lecture, he didn't shame, he didn't explain. He simply labeled the behavior as strange and removed it from his space. That simplicity is what made it powerful, because it suggested something radical in K-pop culture, that idols might be allowed to set boundaries in real time. For many fans, especially those who have watched Jungkook endure years of invasive attention, Mingyu's response felt like protection, not dramatic, not performative, but instinctive. A friend hearing something wrong and shutting it down without hesitation. In that reading, Mingyu wasn't acting as an idol, he was acting as a person. And that distinction matters. The emotional response from fans reflected that shift. Instead of turning the incident into a fan war, many ARMY and Carrot expressed shared frustration. They talked about entitlement, about how some fans confuse access with ownership, about how live streams, once meant to be moments of connection, have become spaces where idols are expected to tolerate anything in the name of fan service. The phrase that kept appearing was boundaries. Where are they? Who enforces them? And what happens when idols finally do? This isn't the first time K-pop has faced this question, but it may be one of the clearest examples of why it can no longer be avoided. The industry has changed. Idols are more accessible than ever. Lives, comments, DMs, fan platforms blur the line between public figure and private individual, and while that accessibility fuels engagement and loyalty, it also creates a dangerous illusion that idols owe fans more than music, more than performances, more than gratitude, that they owe them access. The Jungkook phone number request exposed that illusion in its rawest form. It wasn't disguised as concern, it wasn't masked as support. It was a direct demand for private information, in public, with no apparent awareness of how inappropriate it was. And when Mingyu reacted, he shattered another illusion, that idols must always absorb discomfort quietly. Some industry observers have pointed out that newer generations of idols appear more willing to speak up, even briefly, when fans cross lines. Not through long statements or emotional speeches, but through small acts of resistance. A comment read out loud. A fan blocked. A live ended early. Each action is minor on its own, but together they suggest a shift in power dynamics. Is this a turning point? Or just an exception? That question lingers, unresolved. What makes this incident particularly striking is how quickly it connected to Jungkook's past experiences. Fans recalled previous reports of his phone number being leaked, the stress of constant unknown calls, the anxiety of never knowing who has access to your private life. In that context, the request didn't feel random. It felt like reopening a wound that never fully healed. HYBE and BTS have repeatedly emphasized the importance of respecting artists' privacy. Legal action has been taken in the past against invasive behavior. Yet, incidents like this keep happening, often in spaces fans perceive as informal and consequence-free. A live stream feels casual, a comment feels fleeting, but the impact is real. And that's why Mingyu's reaction resonated beyond fandom lines. It wasn't about defending Jungkook as a superstar. It was about rejecting the idea that anyone, no matter how famous, forfeits their right to basic privacy. Still, the debate continues. Some worry that encouraging idols to respond directly could lead to more conflict, more scrutiny, more pressure. Others argue the opposite, that silence has only emboldened the worst behavior, and that clear boundaries, even uncomfortable ones, are necessary for the industry to evolve. The uncomfortable truth is that K-pop thrives on intimacy while suffering from its consequences. Fans are invited into idols' lives, but not taught where to stop. Companies monetize closeness, but hesitate to police it until damage is done. And idols are caught in the middle, expected to be grateful and guarded at the same time. Mingyu's moment in that car live didn't solve any of that, but it forced people to look at it. Why did one comment feel so shocking? Why did one response feel so refreshing? Why did so many fans, across different fandoms, feel the same mix of embarrassment and relief? Perhaps because, for once, the mask slipped. The polished idol persona gave way to a genuine human reaction. And in that reaction, fans saw not rejection but honesty. The incident may fade from trending lists. Another controversy will replace it. But the question it raised won't disappear so easily. If idols start setting boundaries, will fandom culture change? Or will it resist, pushing back against any reminder that idols are not objects of access? And more importantly, if this moment had been ignored instead of addressed, what message would that have sent? As K-pop continues its global expansion, these questions grow louder, not quieter. The world is watching, not just the music, but the culture around it, how artists are treated, how fans behave, how boundaries are drawn, crossed, and defended. In the end, the most unsettling part of the Mingyu Live incident isn't that someone asked for Jungkook's phone number, it's that they felt comfortable doing so. And the most hopeful part isn't that Mingyu reacted. It's that so many fans understood why he did. Was it a small moment? Yes. Was it accidental? Maybe. But was it meaningless? Absolutely not. Because sometimes, change doesn't arrive with a speech or a statement. Sometimes, it arrives in a single uncomfortable sentence spoken aloud when silence would have been easier. And the industry, along with its fans, is now left with the same question that echoed through that live stream and across social media afterward. If idols are finally saying enough, are we ready to listen? And listening, it turns out, is the hardest part. Because beneath the surface of outrage, praise, and endless quote tweets, the Mingyu Jungkook incident quietly exposed something far more fragile than a single inappropriate comment. It exposed how deeply normalized boundary violations have become, how quickly they are excused as just curiosity, and how uncomfortable fans feel when an idol finally refuses to play along. What followed in the hours after the clip went viral was not just debate, but self-reflection, though not everyone was ready for it. Some fans began asking questions that rarely get asked out loud. When did fandom stop being about support and start feeling like access? When did knowing everything about an idol become more important than respecting them? And why does it feel shocking when an idol reacts like a human being instead of a brand? The reactions revealed a generational split inside fandom culture itself. Older fans, or those who have watched K-pop evolve through scandals, sasang incidents, and legal battles, largely sided with Mingyu. To them, the request for Jungkook's number wasn't just rude, it was a warning sign, a reminder of how easily admiration slips into entitlement when left unchecked. Younger or more casual fans, however, were more conflicted. Some argued that the comment might have been a joke, poorly delivered but not malicious. Others worried about the precedent. If idols start calling out fans directly, would live streams become hostile spaces? Would fans feel afraid to comment at all? But that fear, critics pointed out, says more about fandom expectations than idol behavior. Why should basic respect feel restrictive? As the discussion deepened, media outlets began framing the incident as more than a viral clip. Headlines shifted from describing what happened to asking why it mattered. Entertainment columns in multiple countries highlighted the same core issue: privacy in the age of hyper-accessibility. Jungkook's name, inevitably, became central to the narrative, not because he was present, but because he has become a symbol of what happens when fame outpaces protection. One of the most recognizable figures in global pop culture, Jungkook has spent years navigating obsessive attention, speculation about his personal life, and repeated invasions of privacy. For fans who have followed his journey, the request for his phone number didn't feel isolated. It felt like part of a pattern that never fully goes away. And that is what made Mingyu's reaction feel heavier than it appeared. He wasn't just responding to a comment, he was responding to a history. Friends of idols are often expected to act as neutral figures, smiling bridges between fandoms. Mingyu has long been seen that way: friendly, approachable, careful, which is why his choice to react, even briefly, surprised so many people. It broke the unspoken rule that idols must remain emotionally neutral in public spaces, especially when the issue doesn't directly involve them. But perhaps that rule is exactly what's being questioned now. In the past, idols who spoke up risked being labeled unprofessional, sensitive, or ungrateful. Silence was safer. Silence kept brands intact. Silence avoided headlines. Yet silence also allowed invasive behavior to continue unchecked and normalized. This time, silence didn't happen. And suddenly, fans were forced to confront a difficult reality. Idols notice more than we think. They read comments, they recognize patterns, they feel discomfort. And sometimes they react before filtering it through PR instincts or company guidelines. That rawness is uncomfortable, but it is also honest. As days passed, the conversation widened beyond Mingyu and Jungkook. Fans began sharing other moments when idols subtly or not so subtly pushed back against invasive behavior, lives where comments were ignored, fan signs where boundaries were restated, interviews where idols carefully emphasized their need for private space. Individually, those moments seemed small. Together, they painted